Alrighty guys, so we're going to add again today, and we're going to talk about the first form of a quadratic, which I think is the easiest way to graph, and that is called vertex form. And we're going to be doing that on pages 104 and 105. Okay, so if my quadratic equation is in vertex form, we want to know how to graph that real quick, real fast. So if we turn to that page, we had a little bit of a preview of this in our Desmos activity. So if I'm looking at a quadratic in vertex form, a couple of key features that we want to be on the lookout for is like parentheses squared. So if I have one set of parentheses and then a squared, that tells me that I am in vertex form. And it's very important to be able to identify what form I'm in so that I know how I should start graphing. Okay, now when I'm looking at a graph in vertex form, the letters that I have here, A, H, and K, will be numbers, but I want to identify those numbers because they tell me certain key features about the graph. So really the first thing I like to identify is just like the numbers right in order. So A right here helps me to graph my parabola because A is sort of like slope. Now I'm going to put slope in parentheses because it's not like rise over run slope. It is a little bit, but it doesn't work that way because a parabola gets faster, faster, faster. And so the slope is always changing. So we can't use it like a line's slope, but we can use it a little bit to help us get a good idea of what our graph looks like. So the reason I put slope in quotations like this is because we can do it as slope, but only once. And from the vertex. And we have to think of it as really rise over 1. So whatever the number is, I always can only move over 1. Like normally we do rise over run, but my run here always has to be 1. So that's super duper important. Now the other key feature that we want to find of our graph, because I can't do slope if I don't have a starting point, is the vertex. So looking at the rest of my numbers, I'm going to be looking for a number inside parentheses and a number outside parentheses, and I take each of those numbers and I put them into an ordered pair, and that becomes my vertex. The vertex is the most important part of your graph because it's that minimum or maximum point. It's like where the graph changes directions. And so if I know where that point is, then I can get the rest of my graph coming off of it by using slope. So we want to plot our vertex first. And guys, the thing to remember here is that H, the number that I get from inside parentheses, is always going to be opposite of what you see. And I'm going to put it inside parentheses because that's where it comes from. K is always going to be outside parentheses, and it stays the same. So if we jump down here, I don't think we need all the space in between. If we jump down here now, these are going to be the steps that we want to follow for graphing success to make my parabola look squeaky clean, like a U, not a V. We first want to find and plot the vertex. Remember, my vertex is going to be H, K. We're going to use A, the number that is in front of parentheses, as slope once. So only once, and we do it as rise over 1. We can also find the Y-intercept, but that is a little bit time consuming. But it does help us to get a better shape on our graph. So if I'm going to find the Y-intercept, that is an easy point to find because it's always 0, comma some number. So if I want to find the Y-intercept, I plug 0 in for x, and simplify. That will get me the y value, and then I put it right here, and I go plot that point. Okay, so if we try that with this graph here, step number 1, we're going to find and plot that vertex. So the way that I find my vertex is I look inside parentheses and outside parentheses. And when I take those two numbers, I make them into an ordered pair where the first number, or the number inside parentheses, always is opposite. So it's not going to be +4, it's going to be -4. The number outside parentheses, I keep exactly the same, so -2. And kind of once I have it, I can go plot it. So we go to -4, -2. And that's my vertex. So I know, like, that is such a key point, because now I know my parabola is going to come up from there or go down from there. So that's super important to find. The second thing that we want to find is we want to find that slope. So we're using A as slope. A is always the number in front of parentheses, the number being multiplied, just like slope is always being multiplied. And so here, my slope-ish is -1/4. Now here's where we have to be careful, because we can only do it once coming from that vertex on either side, because we have our line of symmetry. And I have to do it as rise over 1. So this is my full rise, and then I'm going to go over 1. Although it's not really a rise because it's negative, so I'm going to go down. So from here, I'm going to go down 1/4, which is like not even, like that's just a little smidgy. And then I have to go over 1. And again, because I have my line of symmetry that goes through the vertex, I can flip that point over and put it on the other side. So I can already see my little parabola taking shape. If you want a really good looking parabola, the third thing that we can do is find our y-intercept by putting 0 in place of x. So if we do that, we'd have -1/4, parenthesis. Now 0 plus 4 is just 4, squared, -2. And so I just need to multiply all this out by following good order of operations. It's like 4 squared is 16. And then that's being multiplied by -1/4, which is really just like dividing by 4. And so we'll have -4 minus 2, which gives me a y-intercept of -6. And that's helpful, because if I go to plot my y-intercept at -6, then because I have my line of symmetry, I can flip it over and put it on the other side. So this is like 1, 2, 3, 4 away from my line of symmetry. And so we could go 1, 2, 3, 4 away on the other side. Oop, it's a little bit off the graph I have here. This is a real fatty. This graph is real wide. Then you just want to connect your dots and try to make it a smooth curve, not V-shaped. We want it to be U-shaped. And there you go. Let's open this up and try a couple more. Okay, so starting here, I first want to find my vertex. I'm looking inside parentheses, and I make it opposite. I'm looking outside parentheses. I don't see anything, so that's a 0. The second thing I want to find is my slope. That's the number always being multiplied in front, and I don't see anything there, which actually makes it a 1. And then lastly, I can find that y-intercept by putting 0 in for x. And so I'll have 0 minus 1 squared. And 0 minus 1 is just -1. And -1 squared is 1. So now I can go plot this and get a cute looking parabola. If I plot my vertex at 1, 0, then from there I can do my slope of 1, so like up 1 over 1. And now the thing is, because I have that line of symmetry, I can flip it over, put it on the other side, which actually happens to be my Y-intercept. So from this point, I'm just going to have to sketch this little cutie out. I can't get another point easily, but that's okay. We can kind of see that this parabola is pointing up. It has a minimum value, all that fun stuff. All right, looking at the one underneath. First, I want to find that vertex. So I'm like trying to look inside parentheses, but kind of there aren't any. And so if there aren't any, that means that there wasn't anything in there being added or subtracted. So that's a 0. Then I want to look outside parentheses, and that's a 2. The next thing I want to find is my slope, which slope is a number being multiplied in front, and that's a -1. And then last but not least, I want to find my y-intercept, but I kind of think I already have it, because if I put 0 in place of x, I kind of already have that here, and it's 2. So this one is kind of going to be like the last one where I couldn't plot a whole bunch of points, but that's okay. So I'm going to go plot my vertex at 0, 2. Because my slope is -1, I can go down 1 over 1. And I can also flip it over, put it on the other side because of that symmetrical feature. And then that's kind of all I can plot here. So now I'm just going to sketch out that little cute parabola. We got a pointing down parabola, which means that this is a maximum. Yeah. Okay, oh no, we got 2 more over here. And then I'm going to make a separate video for page 104. Alrighty, looking at this one, I first want to find my vertex. The vertex is going to be the inside number, but opposite, so -2, comma the outside number, so 3. Then I like to find my slope number, which is the number in front being multiplied, so -2. And then lastly, we can find that y-intercept by plugging in 0, which really just means that this goes away. And so I end up with -2 smashed up against 2 squared plus 3. Then I just got to follow good order of operations. So like 2 squared is 4 times the -2 will be -8 plus 3 is -5. So we kind of jump around there because we have to follow order of operations. Alrighty, let's go graph this. So my vertex is at -2, 3. I also have my line of symmetry going through there, which is super duper helpful. Because when I go to do the slope, which is down 2 over 1, I can then flip that over and put it on the other side. So I can already see my parabola taking shape. But if I want to make it look real good, I can go plot that y-intercept at -5. And then I can take that point and flip it over and put it on the other side. So this is a point and down parabola that's real skinny, real narrow. And that's because it's moving faster. Like this slope of 2 is moving real fast. Like compared to the front graph that I did here, had a slope of 1/4, that's moving real slow. And so that's why this one was such a wide graph. Alrighty, last one we got. First going to find that vertex, which is at 4, -3. Then I would find that slope, which is the front number, so 1/2. But really I'm going to think of that as 1/2 over 1. And then lastly, we can find that y-intercept by putting 0 in place of x, which kind of really just means that the x goes away. And so I have 1/2 times -4 squared minus 3. Now -4 squared is 16, and 1/2 of 16 is 8, minus 3 is 5. Okay. Now I'm going to go graph. So I'm going to first plot my vertex at 4, -3. My line of symmetry goes through that, which is a nice guide to get points on either side to get my parabola. Now from here, my slope is half, so I have to just rise half and run 1. Always run 1. But then I can flip that over and put it on the other side. So this one is going to be a lot like that front graph where it's wider because it's going slower. Then I can plot my Y-intercept, which is at 0, 5. And then if I want to make this parabola look real good, we can flip this over and put it on the other side. Has to be equal on both sides because that's symmetry, man. Then we just want to make sure when I connect all my dots, we do a smooth curve, not a pointy V. We want it to look like a U. And this graph here is a little bit wider, has a minimum value, and is pointing up. So guys, in the next video, I'm just going to do all these practice problems on Vertex Form over here as well. So we'll see you there.